Good morning to all of you. Bindu Chaudhary is with you in your social science class. Today we are covering our last chapter of history, chapter 10th. After independence, India after independence, what happens? What were the situations on that time? How India were going on in under process? So today we are covering its part first, as we had already read in our previous parts about the national movements, about the growing of industries, about the tribes and other things also. So today we are covering this topic, a new and divided nation. When India became independent in August 1947, it faced a series of very great challenges, because after independence lot of changes took place in India. What are the changes? What things changed in that time? See here, as a result of partition, 8 million refugees had come into the country from what was now Pakistan. We called them refugee, but they were not refugee. But situations changed, and after the partition, what happened? The Hindus which were living in Pakistan, now in Pakistan, they switched off from there to India, free India, and near about 8 million रिफ्यूजीज. देखिए नाम भी चेंज हो गया उनका. उनको क्या कहा गया? उन्हें बच्चों रिफ्यूजी कहा गया. तो नियर अबाउट 8 million refugees were there who switched off from Pakistan to India. These people had to be found homes and jobs. So this one is the new problem in the new government, that how they faced this crisis, because 8 million people is not a small amount or a small figure. So they needs jobs as well as they needs homes. So this situation was critical for the government to deal with. Then there was one another problem of the princely states. As we already read about the princely states, 565 states were there. So the main problem was about the princely state, almost near about 500 of them, each ruled by a king or a nawab, each of whom had to be persuaded to join the new nation, because they had their own concepts about joining whether Pakistan or whether to India. So this issue also arose on that time. And what happened? Who took initiative for the integration of India? See here, we will read this one also in our book. The problems of the refugees and of the princely states had to be addressed immediately, because this was the main issues, and this was solved by the government. So government took initiative one by one, first for refugees, then of princely states for the solving problems. In the longer term, the new nation had to adopt a political system that would best serve the hopes and expectations of its population. So this thing was in demand, that new system, new political system is to be adopted. For what reasons, students? For the betterment or for the progress of the nation. So this system was adopted by India, and it wanted to serve as the best and hopes for the best expectations of its populations, because hopes and expectations had no limits, but population needs some basic needs for themselves. See, this one is the picture of the Mahatma Gandhi's ashes being immersed in Allahabad in the year February 1948. Yes, after the death of Mahatma Gandhi, as we all know about Nathuram Godse. नाथूराम गॉडसे ने क्या किया था बच्चों? नाथूराम गॉडसे ने महात्मा गांधी को गोली मार दी थी, काफ़ी क्राइसिस हुआ था उस समय। और उसके बाद में जो उनकी एशीज़ है उनको कहाँ पे ले जाया गया, अहमदाबाद में, अहमदाबाद में ले जाया गया। देखिए कितना बड़ा क्राउड उस टाइम इकट्ठा हुआ था। We are talking about the India's population in the year 1947. It was large, almost 345 million population was there. It was also divided. So, division of 345 million people, and there were divisions between high caste and low caste. As we had already discussed in the women caste and reform chapter about this one, that the casteism system was divided into 4 parts. First one is the upper one, in which Brahmins and Kshatriyas was there, and after that in Vaishyas, money lenders and traders were included, and in the Shudras, the working class, preachers and weavers etc. included, and in the lower class we already discussed about this one, the untouchables included. So, on that time after free India, what happened, again the divisions between upper classes and low classes has there. So, between the majority Hindu community and Indians who practiced other faiths. So, not only division of casteism was there, but majority Hindu communities and Indians who had faith in other communities also, they also had to be divided. They themselves not need to be divided, but situations ऐसी हो गई थी बच्चों वहाँ पे कि जब अलग कंट्री बन गया है तो उस अलग कंट्री को, स्पेशली जब हम कहते हैं कि मुस्लिम लीग की जो काम थे उनकी वजह से ही वो आगे प्रोसीड हुआ था, आगे बना था. सो ऑन दैट टाइम द सिचुएशन ऑफ डिवीजन was also there. The citizens of this vast land spoke many different languages, wore many kinds of the dresses, ate different kinds of food, and practiced different professions. As we already discussed about the different states and regions, India was divided. Maybe that was the province India, maybe that was the free India. So, one more condition about the citizens, what happened, they spoke many different languages, they ate many different dishes, they wore many different dresses, as well as they practiced many different professions also. So, how they will be divided? So, how they divided themselves or government divide them? ऐसा तो कुछ नहीं है कि आप खाना खाते हो ये वाला तो आप इधर आ जाइए, आप इधर आ जाइए. सम सिस्टम वॉज देयर फॉर दिस वन. The main question arises, one thing more for this, how could they be made to live together in one nation or state? Because they had different culture, different tradition, different food system, different clothing system was there. So, it was a main difference that how they live together in one nation. So, to the problem of unity was added the problem of development. It's okay, development was the main issue, main problem for the free India. It was not the problem, it was a issue to be solved out. But parallelly one more issue was there, and the issue was the unity of India, unity of the free nation, and in between that unity every person united. So, what happened? At independence, the vast majority of Indians lived in the villages. As we all know, the rural part was in a large way. So, after independence, this one also the problem कि गाँवों में सबसे ज़्यादा जो आबादी थी वो कहाँ पे थी बच्चों? वह आबादी थी गांवों में। तो गांवों में आबादी है और उसको हमें पूरे राष्ट्र को, एक राष्ट्र जो कि विभिन्नता लिए, डाइवर्सिटी लिए हुए है, उसको लेके आना है। फार्मर्स एंड पीजेंट्स डिपेंड्स ऑन द मानसून फॉर देयर सर्वाइवल बिकॉज नॉट प्रॉपर इरिगेशन सिस्टम वॉज देयर ऑन दैट टाइम. So farmers and peasants only depends on the monsoon rainy seasons for their survival. So did the non-farm sector of the rural economy. Same happened with the non-farm rural economy of that time. So unity and development had to go hand in hand. इसीलिए हम क्या कहते हैं, एक तरफ तो इंडिया का डेवलपमेंट होना ज़रूरी है एंड इन द सेकेंड हैंड यूनिटी का भी होना उतना ही ज़रूरी है. सो दीज बोथ इश्यूज कम्स वन बाय वन. इन वन हैंड unity and in the other hand what happened, development. So this is the main issue for the government. If the divisions between different sections of India were not healed, they could result in violent and costly conflicts. So as we already know that different peoples had different rules, religions, customs, traditions, their culture. So it was the main issue that after this division between the sections of India, what happened? If everything was not in a proper way, then the result in violent and caste conflicts comes out. So high caste fighting with low caste, Hindus with Muslims and so on. So this new issue arose on that time. High classes always had conflict with the low classes, same with the Hindus and Muslims and so on with other fellows also. At the same time, if the fruits of economic development did not reach the broad masses of the population, एक और संग में और क्या आ रही थी कि it's okay, on that time economic development was also going on, and if the economic development was not in a proper way, not reached to the broad masses of the peoples of the population, it could create the fresh divisions, for example between the rich and the poor. So this one is the main issue. Economic development was there, but if not in a proper way, if fractions are there between upper classes and lower classes, then between cities and the countryside, और किस किस में conflict हो सकता है, cities में और जो rural area है उसमें conflict हो रहा है between regions of India that were prosperous and regions that lagged behind. One more issue, the issue was the prosperous India and the lagged India. सो कई हमारे इंडिया के ऐसे पार्ट्स हैं, अभी भी हैं, जहाँ पर हम क्या देखते हैं, मानसून बहुत अच्छा है, वहाँ का इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट बहुत अच्छा है एट प्रेजेंट आल्सो, बट जहाँ पे हम दूसरे स्टेट्स की बात करते हैं तो हम क्या देखते हैं, दे आर लैगिंग बिहाइंड दीज वन. सो वन मोर थिंग was also parallel going on with that one. A constitution is written. हमारे यहाँ पे जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बनाया गया उसके लिए भी ये बात आना चाहिए कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन कैसा होना चाहिए, दैट इज इन रिटन प्रोसेस. सो बिटवीन दिसंबर 1946 and November 1949, some 300 Indians had a series of meetings on the country's political future. So again these members between December 1946 and November 1949, it means near about 300 Indians had a series of meetings for the India's political future, how India will be in future. So they had a meeting for that one, and the meetings of this Constitution Assembly, they called these meetings constituent assemblies. So these were held in New Delhi, but the participants came from all over India and from different political parties. So this one is the main issue. All the meetings were held in New Delhi, but all the members, near about 300 members, came from the different parts of the India and different political parties of India. So how these meetings were going on? These discussions resulted in the framing of the Indian Constitution, which came into effect on 26th January 1950. After meetings, one constitution was developed for our free India, and that constitution came into effect from 26th January 1950. One feature of the constitution was its adoption of universal adult franchise. एक सबसे बड़ा जो फीचर हमारे संविधान की अगर हम बात करते हैं बच्चों, तो वह फीचर क्या है? वह फीचर है यूनिवर्सल एडल्ट फ्रेंचाइजिंग. All Indians above the age of 21 would be allowed to vote in state and national elections. So in our constitution one more thing was there. At present also we are voting, we had power of voting, but for what age? अभी आपको कितना एज पे वोटिंग का अधिकार है बच्चों? एट प्रेजेंट 18 का होने के बाद में जो बच्चे हैं उनको वोटिंग का अधिकार है. बट ऑन दैट टाइम ऑल इंडियंस अबव द एज ऑफ 21 वुड बी अलाउड टू vote, maybe in the state elections, maybe in the national elections. In other countries, when we are talking about the other countries such as the United Kingdom and the United States, this right had been granted in stages. It's okay. In free India, from the very first time, they regularized the voting power to everyone who covered the age limit of 21, maybe for state elections, maybe for national elections. But what happened in United Kingdom and United States? They also granted voting, but in the stages, not in a one hand they granted voting power to the people. First only man of property had the vote. स्टार्टिंग में किसको वोट का अधिकार दिया गया बच्चों? ओनली मैन्स हैड प्रॉपर्टी टू had their power of voting. Then man who were educated were also added in. अब और क्या हुआ कि जो पढ़े लिखे हैं वो भी शामिल हो रहे हैं उसके. पहले तो प्रॉपर्टी जिनके पास में है, the man who hold properties, only they had the power to give vote, the use of their voting. But after that educated peoples also, mainly mans also included in this one. After that working class man got the vote only after a long struggle. वर्किंग क्लास जो पीपल है, इट मीन्स कॉमनर्स जो हैं, उनको भी वोटिंग का अधिकार दिया गया. बट आफ्टर अ लॉन्ग स्ट्रगल दे हैड गिवन दिस using power. Finally, after a bitter struggle of their own, American and British women were granted the vote. We are talking about United Kingdoms and United States. So the process of voting, how? First one, only property holder mans were allowed to be vote. After that educated mans allowed it to be vote, and after that working class with lot of struggle they also allowed for voting. And finally with the bitter struggle, Americans and Britishers, especially women, had allowed to use the voting power. On the other hand, soon after independence, what happened in India? Only and only in a very first time chose to grant this right to all its citizens regarding of gender, class or education. So this one is the positive concept of our constitution, because not in a process way. Property holders, then what? Educated, then working class, then women's, where these were allowed in America and British. But what happened in India? Only and only from the very first time all citizens were allowed, maybe they belonged from any gender, class or education had them or not, they all had given the power of voting. Okay, see this one, the picture of Jawaharlal Nehru introducing the resolution that outlined the objectives of the constitution. Constitution का जब काम चल रहा था तो जवाहरलाल नेहरू ने जितने भी मेम्बरान आए हुए थे उन मेम्बरान्स को जितने भी हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के ऑब्जेक्टिव्स थे उनसे उनको अवगत करा रहे थे. A second feature of our constitution was that it guaranteed equality before the law to all citizens regardless of their caste or religion affiliation. So this one, first one is the power of voting was allowed to all citizens. Second issue, second feature of our constitution was that the guaranteed equality. अभी तक हम बात कर रहे थे हमारा जो सोसाइटी था वो 4 पार्ट्स में डिवाइडेड था. बट व्हाट हैपेंड विद द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पावरिंग, व्हाट हैपेंड, द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन गारंटेड इक्वलिटी बिफोर द लॉ टू ऑल सिटीजन्स. मे बी दे बिलोंग्ड फ्रॉम एनी कास्ट, मे बी दे बिलोंग्ड फ्रॉम एनी रिलीजन, मे बी anything religious affiliation, maybe any upper class, lower class, every citizen has the same gazetted power of guaranteed equality before law. This time also we have this much of power. One of the student in a class told me about the power of equality कि मैम मेरी मम्मा ने मुझे डांटा तो मैं पुलिस के पास जाना चाहता हूँ, तो क्या मैं जाऊँ? तो यहाँ इक्वलिटी के संग संग हम और भी जो राइट्स एंड ड्यूटीज़ हैं उनके भी हम पढ़ेंगे. तो वहाँ पे टीचर कहते हैं इट्स ओके, यू हैड स्टडीड इन आवर क्लास अबाउट द ड्यूटीज़ एंड राइट्स, देन व्हाट अबाउट ड्यूटीज़? You had studied only rights in my class, not duties. First you obey your duties, then you follow your writing power. So this one is the issue. We will continue this chapter in our next session. Stay with us. Have a nice day.